it feels like a weight is off my shoulders and I feel like I'm able to breathe. Some people are made to be influencers. Some people are made to be, the face of whatever, and they love it and they thrive off it, and that's their personality and they do great. And that's amazing for them. But I just don't think I was built for it. I'd reached a point of my business that I just wasn't feeling fulfilled. It's almost like I kind of expected it to be this, wow, oh my God, I've achieved everything in life moments, but feeling like I'd lost my purpose. What am I contributing to the world?
Today, my guest is Lois. Over the course of 8 years, Lois built a hugely successful fitness coaching business and Instagram following to over 100,000, with brand partnerships including Gymshark. But she quit the industry, her business, and deleted the whole account. And she's going to explain why. Expect to learn about finding your passion, why career change is okay, and the downsides of Instagram fame. This is a fascinating conversation with Lois, and I'm sure you're going to love it. Enjoy. I wanted to start with something that's become a bit of a meme recently. And I don't know if you're aware or if you've seen the whole job your love meme.
I've seen it floating about on
Right. So
Instagram. I have seen it floating about, but I'm not fully, I
not
haven't
fully
really
on
been
board with
on
it.
Instagram much,
Yeah,
no.
right. Well, just for a bit of clarification for you and anyone who's listening who's not aware of it, it's quite funny actually. It's taken off on Instagram and TikTok, and it's this Emirati influencer slash businesswoman. She's called Sarah Al Madani, and on a podcast, I think the podcast was actually a couple of years ago, she says, "Don't love your job, job your love." And the meme that's taken off is basically people commenting on it and swapping sentences and flipping sentences on their head, such as "don't face your fears, fear your face," that kind of thing. And it's really funny, but I actually thought it was a good starting point for us today because of what we're going to talk about with this conversation. We've spoken before this podcast about how life's too short to not do the things that you want to do. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on jobbing your love and finding passion for what you do.
I think this whole jobbing your love term that's floated about is just another one of those, somebody's come online, wants to create a slogan that is going to go viral. It has kind of, I guess it's exploded in the wrong way because it doesn't really make any sense.
Yeah.
It does it. It's just like another thing like someone's just come up with for the sake of it, for the sake of views, in my opinion. It's for me very important that the career path that you're following is something that you enjoy, because talking from experience, I had a business which, don't get me wrong, was my baby, was something that I was really proud of. I worked with lots of amazing clients. I collaborated with lots of amazing people. But for the last, 2 years out of an 8-year stretch of having a business, I didn't really love it as much
Mhm.
as I did. And in those 2 years, it wasn't a instant realization of, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. It was a gradual process over the last 2 years of, this isn't what I want to do anymore, falling out of love with what I did. And
Mhm.
for a little bit more context for those that are listening, I had a business which was Thrive with Lois. It was an online coaching business. Started out as a personal trainer, 4 years in pure gym. COVID hit, then took my business online, and I then did 4 years online. And I was really proud of this business, but the last 2 years of the business, I started to feel drained. I started to feel really flat. I started to feel quite lost. I had a lot of imposter syndrome. I had quite a lot of anxiety. To be honest with you, I would wake up and I would dread waking up to go to work.
Mhm.
And that's when I kind of knew that something wasn't quite right. And me being me, I'm stubborn. I'm very stubborn. And I said to myself, you've had this business for X amount of years, don't give up. Let's try and change something. So there are a couple of things within the business that I tried to change. I tried to pivot because, naturally, if things aren't working for you, um, obviously consistency is the key to success, but also if things aren't working, change can be good. So there were
Hmm.
lots of things that I tried. I got on board business coaches to help me try and restructure things. I did a lot of work, a lot of mindset work as well, but I still felt quite empty, I would
Yeah.
say,
Yeah.
and like I'd really lost my purpose. And I don't want to sound ungrateful when I say this, because I think I had a really successful business and I had a lot of amazing clients, but I really started to resent the work by the end
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of times that I would be quite frustrated and be quite upset, and I would talk about that with my partner. Um, And obviously he would be great and he would be reassuring me, but I just knew that something was missing. And um,
Yeah.
ultimately, that's why I've made huge changes now.
Yeah.
And I just left behind my business that I had for 8 years. And like I said, it wasn't an overnight realization of, okay, now we're stopping. It was 2 years of knowing probably that it wasn't the right thing,
Yeah.
that I didn't really enjoy it anymore. But I was, trudging on for like 2 years, trying to make it work. And
Yeah.
then I just came to the realization I can't do this anymore, personally.
Yeah. That that makes so much sense, and especially from an outsider looking in and seeing seeing the transition that you've had recently. And I want to talk about that and the changes that you've made a little bit later on. But just before all that, so you said so pre-COVID, you were working in a gym. So just for context as well for people listening and about how we met. So, well, we actually met when we were traveling in Australia, and I think I was,
Australia, mate.
yeah, we worked at Young and Jackson, wasn't it? The bar in Melbourne
That was
CBD.
the place to be. Honestly, we had the best job. People really wanted to work at Y&J's. Every single day we'd have at least 10 people come in with like their CVs, like handing in CVs to work at the bar. And like we'd be there like pouring our schooners and our pots and our pints, just like the pros on the bar,
Yeah.
just having a laugh. And everyone would be coming in with their CVs and pass it to the manager, and the manager would be like, "No, we're overstaffed." And I'd be thinking, "Wow, I'm really lucky that I've got a job here," because it was the place to be, wasn't it? It popped
Yeah, it
off.
was. It was really good fun. And so I think so that was back dates are going to be a struggle for me to
2016.
remember. 2016, right? So
Yeah.
I was over at the time on a student visa because I was actually doing my PT qualifications in Australia. So I was restricted with the amount of hours that I could work, outside of doing the course. But so back in 2016, we obviously were in Australia at the same time. Were you on a working holiday visa then? And what does, obviously, us being and working together in Melbourne, what does your life look like then from leaving Melbourne to then ending up back in the UK? Did you see the year out in Australia? Because I was only at Young and Jackson's for maybe a couple of months, really, because a different job came up for me that was closer for home, worked better for the hours for me. So I was only there a few months. So our paths crossed for, yeah, maybe a couple of months or so. But what did life look like for you from being at the bar and then leaving Australia and then ultimately becoming that PT that worked at, you said Pure Gym, wasn't it? You were a Pure Gym PT, weren't you?
Mm,
Yeah.
I was a pure PT. So that's funny because I thought we worked together for a lot longer than that. But it's funny, isn't it? When you're traveling, I feel like your perception of time is just completely off. But
Yeah.
when I worked at Young and Jackson's, that was kind of towards the end of my time in Australia. So I think I'd already done probably about half a year, 7 months by the time I got to Y and J's. So that for me was work, save up money, and go off traveling. Again, that was my mindset. So I was very much wanting to travel more, and that was my goal, earn as much money as possible. So I the reason I came back to the UK is because my brother, it was his 18th birthday. So I thought, oh, I'll come back to the UK. I'll stay for his birthday, and then I'll go back out. But by this time, I hadn't booked any flights because I wasn't sure how long I wanted to stay in the UK. And then I came home and I realised actually I did really miss my family, and I did miss everything that was going on here. So I stayed in the UK for a little bit, and then from there decided actually I'm going to plant my feet here for a little bit. Doesn't mean that I won't go back to Australia. I'm going to plant my feet here for a little bit. And that's when I decided that I was going to do my personal trainer qualification with the money that I'd saved up from Y&J's. Instead of going back off traveling, right, I'm going to spend this lump sum on my PT qualification, and I'm going to pursue that route. So that's what kind of got me like stuck, not stuck in the UK. That sounds really bad. I'm stuck here and chained.
Yeah.
I can't break free.
It sometimes
But
feels like that though, doesn't it? But yeah.
Don't get me wrong. The post Australia blues when I got home was horrible. I was
Yeah.
I was so unhappy.
Yeah.
But as you
I
know,
can
like
relate. I can
the
relate.
quality of life out in Australia is just insane. But you know, I obviously, you know, I enjoyed being in the UK, and I found, again, going back to what we were saying before, I found my purpose at that time, and my purpose was, okay, well, I know that I like motivating people. I know that I like helping people to achieve their fitness goals. Like I love that like buzz, that feeling that you get from just seeing a client absolutely smash it. Because when I was in Melbourne, I would always be the one that would be dragging my like my dorm mates to the gym,
Yeah.
and I'd be killing them off, like getting them to do the sled push
Yeah.
down at Doherty's gym in Melbourne, and just absolutely crushing them. So I came back and I was like, actually, like this is something that I'm really good at, so I'm going to run with it. And then I did, and then it just kind of went from there, really. I'm sure that you can relate. Starting a business as a PT at the start is rough.
Tough.
It is
It
it
is.
is really tough. It's not for the weak. There is a lot of graft. You have to be prepared to put in the hours, be prepared to be starting at 6 a.m., finishing at 10 p.m. at night, sometimes having a nap in the staff room on a workout mat. And you
Yeah.
have to be prepared to just graft, basically. And I don't think I realized how much work it was going to be. Don't get me wrong, I was ready for the challenge.
You know when you go into something that it's going to be hard work, and you know that you are going to have to work. But I think running your own business, if you're going to be a successful PT and end up turning it into a business for yourself rather than a hobby, it's a lot harder, and it's not as sexy as people make it look, and especially how people can make it look online. It's funny that just said then about the whole quality of life thing in Australia, and the post Australia blues that you had. And it's funny because that resonated, so what you just said then resonated so much with me, because for me, as soon as I left, it was a case of, right, I want to go back. And so I actually got into PT. The only way I could go back to Australia, because I didn't do my farm work, so I couldn't get a second year working holiday visa. So the only way I could go back was as a student. And I was looking through the list of courses as what interested me, what could I actually see myself doing. And personal training was one of the ones which was the most affordable, the one that out of everything fit my personality the best, I'd say. And I just went with it. And I had no idea that I would turn it into a career, turn it into what it's become for me personally now. If you'd have said 10 years ago that this was going to happen, it would never have crossed my mind. You said how you were enjoying beasting roommates at Doherty's. What was it about fitness specifically for you that made you think I could make a career out of this? Like, I want to do this as a career. Like, have you always been into sport? Have you always been that athletic person?
So I've gone through stages. When I was younger, I was quite overweight. I wasn't confident. I didn't like sports day. I would do anything that I could to try and get out of sports day. I'd write fake sick notes to get out of swimming because I didn't like being in a swimming costume, and I absolutely hated it. So I would do anything to get out of sports days. And I was quite uncomfortable with sports when I was younger, purely because I felt quite overweight and I didn't feel confident, and I just got quite embarrassed that I would sweat and things like that. So um I hated it when I was at school. And then it was only when I was, I wouldn't say 17, that I was kind of thinking, I don't think I don't want to go on feeling like this. I don't want to not feel like, confident. And at that point as well, in school, we was wearing our own clothes because it was sixth form, right? So it was right, well, you have to put on like your own skirts and your blazers and your shirts and whatever. It wasn't a school uniform that you could hide behind anymore.
Just taking a second here to quickly interrupt the podcast to give you a heads up that in the next part of this conversation, we talk about eating disorders and body image. If that's something that might feel triggering or uncomfortable for you, please feel free to skip ahead to minute 18.
So I then started to run. I downloaded my Fitness Pal. I went about it an unhealthy way, which I didn't realize at the time was unhealthy. But I started running with my friend, became a little bit too obsessed with running and a little bit too obsessed with calorie counting. And then I ended up with an eating disorder. So I ended up being bulimic. And I ended up chasing the numbers on the scales. I ended up chasing, the numbers every single day. And if I didn't go for a run every single day, I would be quite I would be quite harsh on myself. I became very obsessed with numbers and how I looked, and the thigh gap, and having a small waist. And that then led to being quite obsessive about just everything, really. Everything that I did, it controlled my life. I couldn't really go out with friends. I didn't really have a social life. If I did have a social life, I would have a piece of a toast before going out to Tiger and then get absolutely obliterated and then wonder why I was so drunk over like one vodka cranberry. So it was just not very healthy.
Sorry to interrupt again. Just to say that if you did skip the last part of that conversation, you're now safe to carry on listening. Okay, let's get back to the pod.
And then I went to uni, and then from there, I met my friend Carla, who she was just working in the Starbucks at this point. I was, a 19-year-old. She was late 20s at this point, and she was the barista. And I remember just seeing her like arms, like she was wearing a short sleeve t-shirt, and she just looked jacked. And I remember like I'd go in every day, I'd order this stupid drink, which was it was like four pumps of sugar-free vanilla with water and ice blended, right? Yeah, I know, honestly. Matty's, you're looking at me now and you're creasing because honestly, it's stupid. It's like you're drinking air. But I, this was the in drink at the time because it was low calorie and it meant that I could, have less calories throughout the day, whatever. But anyway, I'd get my friend to make it for me, and she'd be like, what is this? Like, and then we'd have chats about the gym and things like that. And then one day she said to me, why don't you come to the gym with me? Like, why don't you come? I'll show you how to lift some weights. And then I remember that first session because honestly, I was on the floor rolling about. She made me do walking lunges for the first time, like with weights. I was so used to doing it body weight. She made me do it with weights. And the next day I fell out of bed. I rolled out of bed and fell onto the floor. And from that moment, that is what kind of transformed my life, because I thought to myself, I don't want to be I don't want to chase these unrealistic body expectations that I've put on myself, that society puts on women. And I wanted to start feeling more empowered. I wanted to start feeling strong. So that's why I then started to lift weights. And ultimately that moment in time led me to go down the route of becoming a personal trainer, because I'd gone through knowing how it feels to hate your body, to
Hmm.
be horrible to yourself, to put all of these unrealistic expectations on yourself. And I've gone through that myself. So I feel like I could understand a lot of my clients, and when they would come to me and they would grab their thighs and they would shake their thighs and they would go, I really just want to get rid of this. I really want to get rid of this jiggly thighs. And um obviously I would reassure them and I would say, like, you know, don't talk about yourself like that. But equally, I'm not going to minimize how somebody feels, because that is also valid. So it was trying to, for me, it was all about guiding women in the right direction to help them lead a more empowered life. And with that would come less negative talk, they'd be kinder to themselves, they would stop restricting their food. And I just feel like that for me was the biggest win of being a personal trainer and a coach.
Kind of moving into your growth on social media and celebrating wins. Like, one of the things that I know that I personally struggle with is, one, reminding myself to celebrate the wins, and the second is moving the goalposts. It's something that I've found myself time after time setting goals, maybe hitting those goals, and then just automatically moving the goalposts and continually chasing. I wanted to ask you, from on the social media side of things, with the Thrive with Lois account, from the outside, watching that growth, how did that look? How did that feel for you? Were you able to celebrate the wins? Were you able to kind of be in the moment with it? Or did you find that when you hit one milestone, you'd move the goalpost and you wouldn't necessarily celebrate it, and you'd keep looking for the next thing and the next thing? Was there anything like that within yourself in terms of the growth of your social media account, or have you always been quite good at kind of being in the moment and being present and celebrating those wins?
Hmm. So I never wanted to go viral. I never wanted my account to be huge. I was quite happy it sat at 10K for years, like years. And my main goal was reaching out to clients, because obviously I was trying to grow my business, my online coaching business. So my goal was, you know, helping to, onboard more women to help them achieve their goals. That was my focus. And then just like overnight, my post started to go viral, and
It was
this
huge.
growth just started to be crazy. And quite honestly, I wasn't prepared for it. I wasn't prepared for the comments. I wasn't prepared for more imposter syndrome. I wasn't prepared for having to feel like I had to keep up with these expectations of posting every single day. And I didn't really know what to do with it when it first happened, to be honest with you. I was quite um, taken aback by it all.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't necessarily say I was ever able to take it in and sit back and be proud of it, because I was always focused on everything else. Oh, I've got to create content that is engaging. Oh, I've got to make sure that this is visually pleasing. Oh, I've got to make sure, that I've replied to all of my comments on my Instagram posts, so that my followers don't get annoyed that I've not replied to them.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
all of those things. And I was never ever. I don't think I ever sat back and thought, this, like, I'm proud of myself and what I've achieved here, because I
Mm.
was always, I would say, with social media, always trying to do more and always trying to do better, that I couldn't just be proud of what I had already achieved.
Do you remember the video? It was the first one that just absolutely popped off.
No, I can't remember. I think it's when I started to take it a little bit more seriously in terms of leveling up the quality of my videos.
Yeah,
I think that's
yeah,
when it started to kind of go viral. Um, but what you don't see behind the scenes is I had a friend that I would create content with, and we'd meet up every Wednesday. And he was great because we'd bounce off each other. I'd help him with his socials, he'd help me with mine. Um, but we'd be sat in Pret trying to brainstorm ideas, and sometimes I'd have weeks where I would be literally stuck. Like I would not know what to create, and that would stress me out. And and it's so just like minimal, isn't it? That as an
mm,
issue, like it's not an issue in the grand scheme of things. It's really not.
yeah,
But behind that, I felt a huge sense of responsibility to my socials and my business and my followers. And I thought, oh, if I'm not, putting out content that has value, if it's not high quality, and if I'm not posting every single day, then my business is going to fail and I'm not going to grow. So
yeah,
I just put a bit too much pressure on myself, I think. And you don't have to put pressure on yourself. I think it's what you do, that whatever you can do that is consistent and that works for you, and that feels good with the content. So then it doesn't feel like a chore.
yeah, definitely. Totally relate to that as well, in the sense of the pressure, because I often find, and I've had this conversation with my own coach quite recently, actually, in terms of this ambition and drive. And there's this ambition and drive that I have, but then there's also this pressure, and it's an unnecessary pressure that I put on myself to try and produce content, to try and grow a business, because ultimately there is an end goal at play. But I had these feelings that I'd have to do X, Y, Z. I had to post this. I had to make my post look this certain way, and I have to make sure that I've got this hook here, and I'm moving the camera in different places to make sure that it's visually engaging for the audience, and all these different things, which I don't think anybody really understands unless they create content themselves. I feel like the world and social media is massively moved in that direction, even insofar as like the last 6-12 months. But we're talking for you then, that was what, maybe was that about 2 years or so ago when you actually, was it about 2 years ago that you actually, that's when you went viral? And I'm interested in terms of your day. You mentioned about sitting in Pret there and brainstorming content. What did your typical day look like when you'd had these first few videos that had just popped off? Like, how did your day-to-day life, did it change compared to what you'd been previously doing because of this pressure of the fact that, well, I've gone viral once? Did you feel the need, maybe from yourself or from elsewhere, to continually push to make more viral content? Or were you just trying to go about your everyday life of, I'm just trying to help people, and if the video pops, it pops. If it doesn't matter. Was there, did you put pressure on yourself there to try and do that and make viral content? And then how did that manifest in your day?
So I think at the start it didn't really change. But then as more and more posts started to go viral, it was something that I felt like I had to kind of keep up with. And don't get me wrong, like my main thing on my social media was value. I would love to create videos, like form videos that would have the value, but unfortunately, those videos wouldn't get the saves, they wouldn't get the shares, they wouldn't get the views. And
Mm,
then my content wouldn't then get pushed out to the people who really needed it. So I kind of had to create those more visual, snappy, short, viral pieces of content that hook people in for them to also see the value content. So I did have to kind of do both.
Yeah.
And social media is such a powerful tool to market your place. Sorry, market your place, market yourself.
Mark yourself. Yeah.
To market yourself. And I think, done correctly, you can skyrocket on there. However, it just wasn't something that I enjoyed doing.
Yeah.
I just enjoyed my business and my clients. And I think the whole marketing side of things was just something that became a chore. But in terms of how it changed my day, I would say I became a lot more fixated on social media. So spending a bit more time on social media because the notifications would pop up and, obviously there's more activity going on your page. So initially, obviously that's all going on and I'd, be kind of replying to comments or trying to create new pieces of content and kind of and quite honestly checking the views, checking
Yeah.
the shares, and it became a little bit yeah, I just became a bit fixated with it, I would say at the start, and then I had to mute my notifications on Instagram, and then that
Yeah.
became a lot better because I was then able to focus less on that and more on what I was meant to be doing. So it became a bit of a distraction, I would say.
Was that when, because you mentioned before about imposter syndrome, is this where it properly started for you, the imposter syndrome? Getting these comments, getting the views, getting the likes, and then feeling, whoa, what did it feel like? Did you feel like you didn't deserve it, or did you feel how did you feel like when you see these videos going? What does that make you personally feel? Did you feel worth it? Did you feel like you deserved this? Again, I'll use the word success. Success means different things to different people, but did you feel like you deserved that, or were you like, why is this happening to me? What's going on?
I mean, I knew that my content was good.
Yeah.
So, well, I felt like my content was good anyway. I got a lot of feedback from people saying your your reel really helped me with this, or it motivated me to do this, or I can now do a stiff leg deadlift
Hmm.
properly thanks to your video. So
Yeah.
I knew that the content that I was putting out there was helping people, and that felt good. However, what I found difficult to deal with was the negativity
Yeah.
online. And I know that people say if you put yourself out online, you open yourself up to negative comments. You should expect it, kind of thing. Um, but when these people are commenting daily on your body, your face, saying negative things, it does chip away. It doesn't matter how thick-skinned you are, it does chip away. And I've got a friend who, she's got like 700,000 followers on Instagram and she goes super viral. And she's had death threats. She's had people send explicit images in her inbox. And the amount of messages that I would get from strangers on the internet, just feeling like they were entitled to say whatever they could to me,
Yeah.
and I didn't like that. It felt like an invasion of privacy, and I have always been, although I am an extroverted introvert, I would say I'm probably more on the introvert side in that I like my privacy,
Yeah.
and I remember this goes way back. So I remember back in 2017, it must be, when I'd first started my account and I was Lois Fitness. And then my account grew to like 10K. And a couple of people in my local area started to recognize me. and knew me as that person on Insta. And I remember I was literally just in Tesco's and someone shouted my Instagram handle at me, and I turned around and I just felt a bit weird about it. I didn't
Yeah.
like it, and some people are made to be influencers, some people are made to be, the face of whatever, and they love it and they thrive off it, and that's their personality and they do great, and that's amazing for them. But I just don't think I was built for it. I just don't
Yeah.
think I don't think it really suited my personality. Um, and yeah, I think ultimately it just came down to me realizing actually I quite like my privacy. I don't like that these strangers can inbox me on Insta. I don't like that they can see where I train. I don't like that
Yeah.
they can see all of these intimate details, most likely about my private life. Um, and that just freaked me out, to be honest with you.
One of the downsides to social media, the trolls, the comments. For you, in terms of the kind of comments that you got, on the whole, were they more positive than negative? And secondly, then with regards to the negatives, what kind of things were, and you don't have to go into specifics if you don't want to, but what kind of things were people saying to you, and how did that affect you?
So I would definitely say, firstly, there was a lot more positive than negative. And I'm so grateful for all of the people that continued to support my Instagram and supported, everything that I did. And those were the real ones. They were the OGs. And I, love them for that. But there would be the odd comment here and there. And I know it's just a comment, but it would still stick out. You unfortunately for me, I would then gravitate towards that comment. It didn't matter if there was 40 positive ones, that one negative comment, like, it would stand out. So I
Yeah.
would say initially when I started to get those negative comments, because I don't get me wrong, like, when you're younger and you're bullied, you experience it in that way. It's face to face. It's there. It's clear as day. But when somebody's hiding behind a screen, it just feels there's just even more. It just feels even more unjust because it's how can you sit there behind your little screen typing these things and there
Yeah.
be no consequences. So I would say that, initially it did affect me, and yeah, there probably was some tears. Probably did. I was overwhelmed by it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But over time, I would say, probably for like the first 2 weeks of getting negative comments, it would probably affect me. But then after that, it was, oh, well, it sounds bad, but it just became the norm. Like, if you did get
Yeah.
a comment, it was just like, oh, well, like, it's good for engagement. you know,
You
th-
just
you
start
know,
replying to them then,
yeah,
and
you start
kind
replying
of,
to them.
yeah.
Yeah, I would try and like flip it on its head, and I'll be like, well, they obviously, they're commenting on my stuff, you know, like, I'm gonna just use this to my advantage. So I'd normally pin the comment at the top,
Yeah.
and then there would be like a thread of comments underneath, and it would boost the engagement. And I'd be like, well, thanks, because you're helping me out here,
Yeah.
So I tried to flip it on its head, but initially it was challenging to navigate. So in terms of the comments that I would receive, a lot of them would be about like my cellulite on my
Right.
legs. So I remember I remember I had a comment from this bloke in America who looked to be, you know, late 50s, um, commenting on my post saying, you something like, if I had legs like that, it was like I would hide if I had legs like that, kind of thing. It was along that kind of,
Along those
you
lines.
know, along
Yeah.
those lines. And I remember posting a screenshot of that to my story
Yeah.
and just being like, and calling it out essentially. And then I got banned
From
from
Instagram.
from posting on my stories, and I got I got like blacklisted for a bit. So because I know it's ridiculous. So I screenshotted the comment and I put it on my story and I just said, this is wholly unacceptable. How can people go around saying things like this behind their little screens?
Probably a
And then
private account as well, right?
it, well, I don't
Most
even know.
likely.
Probably, yeah, most
Yeah.
likely. And then I was the one that got reported and blocked off stories for quite a while, and my account was shadow banned.
It's
But
ridiculous.
when I reported that comment, it wasn't deemed as bullying or harassment.
Yeah. It kind of was just left. It wasn't
Yeah.
even removed. Yeah. You said earlier that it was a kind of a gradual process in terms of not enjoying it, falling out of love with it. And I just wanted to ask quickly before you get onto that. So you obviously hit a point where you got to like, was it like 100 or over 100,000 followers? And then you had this Gymshark partnership. When did you start to think, I'm not feeling this anymore? I'm not sure if this is right for me. This is what I want to do. And then just talk me through that process and how you ended up at the point where you wanted to shut it down and just get rid of the Instagram account.
So having the Thrive with Lois Instagram account obviously opened up quite a lot of opportunities, as you know. Gymshark. I also worked with Protein Works. I worked with EHP Labs as well,
Yeah.
and other companies as well. And it definitely opened up a lot of opportunities, a lot of growth, and it was something that I'd always thought that I wanted to do. And I remember I said to my management at the time, for FCK management, I really want to work with Gymshark. So my manager, Jamie, who is a brilliant manager, he helped organise that and obviously got me in touch with Gymshark. And then from there, I was offered a partnership with them. And to be completely honest with you, I remember finding out that I was working like with Gymshark,
Yeah.
and don't get me wrong, I was happy about it, but it's almost like I kind of expected it to be this wow, oh my God, I've achieved everything in life moments. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I'd been in love with Gymshark since, the early days of them starting. I remember buying my first pair of Gymshark leggings back in 2015. And they are an amazing company. All of my clothes are Gymshark. I love Gymshark. But it's almost like I was chasing these goals for myself. I'll be happy when I do this. I'll be happy when I have my Gymshark sponsorship, or I'll feel like I've achieved everything I need to achieve when I've done X, Y, and Z. And I think Gymshark for me was probably one of those things in that um I got the partnership and it was like, right, okay, now what?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And I didn't really absorb it.
Yeah.
And I just I don't want to sound ungrateful because honestly, working with Gymshark was really, really cool. I think they are an amazing brand. I love all their clothes. But I think it was something in me that just wasn't like clicking. It just wasn't
Yeah.
clicking for me. And that's obviously to do with like my mindset, my own mindset and how I perceive my own success.
Yeah.
So I think over the 2 years, it was just more of a feeling like I'd lost my purpose. What am I contributing to the world right now? And don't get me wrong, as I said earlier, would absolutely love that feeling of helping my clients to, walk down the street with their head held high, or that moment when they send me the message of their gains and they're super happy. But that just wasn't enough for me anymore
Hmm.
because I felt like I'd reached a point in my business, which I'd had for 8 years.
Yeah.
I'd reached a point of my business that I just wasn't feeling fulfilled anymore. I was like, right, okay, well, where do we go from here? Kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And that's what led to me feeling stuck and quite burnt out and quite lost. So it was more of a, I don't think there was any kind of definitive moment in the 2 years. It was just, I didn't really feel like there was a light in me anymore. There wasn't a light that the spring in my step. Like, for example, I said to you earlier, being a PT, sometimes you do 6 a.m. till 10 p.m., right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
apart from cleaning the treadmills, which didn't quite like, I would go strolling into that gym feeling so excited for my day's work, knowing I was going to be there like from 6 a.m. till 10 p.m. I knew it was going to be graft. I knew it was going to be a long day, but I was really excited to see my clients. I was really excited to do the work.
Yeah.
And that for me, like, I just didn't have that feeling anymore for my work. And I just didn't have any light in me. And I just felt, quite honestly, lost, quite low, and just quite depleted and probably quite burnt out because I was putting too much pressure on myself with the socials and things like that.
So how did life look for you once you'd made that decision? Because it's only recently, right, that you've completely deleted the account, but this has been something, it's been a good few months, hasn't it, that you've like stepped away from it. What was that transition period like for you? What did you find yourself doing? Did you find that your new passions just came to you, or did you have an idea of where you wanted to go once you wrapped up the fitness business?
So I'd already been doing photography alongside the coaching. So for probably about 4 years ago, actually, maybe 4 years ago
Yeah.
was my first kind of paid photo shoot that I did within that kind of industry of I started to do confidence photo shoots and working with clients on like portraits and things like that. So I started to do that alongside, and that's when I thought to myself, actually, this is something that I could see myself transitioning over to, because I enjoy um I get a real buzz out of knowing that I can help people feel confident in front of the camera. And I guess it's kind of similar, isn't it? You know, it's that, like, to the personal training, it's like helping people to feel amazing in
Yeah.
themselves. And I do weddings as well, and it's just lovely to be part of somebody's special day and to help capture memories and moments that you know that they're going to cherish forever. And it's nice to be part of that. And I also thrive on being busy. So I thrive, I need to be stimulated, I need my brain to be challenged. And I
Yeah.
think with the coaching, I just wasn't challenged anymore. My brain just felt like it was probably on autopilot because I'd done it for so long, and I was good at what I did. So it was just like on autopilot. Whereas with the photography, I do feel challenged. The environments are constantly changing. You have to adapt to stressful situations. Like, things don't always go to plan. You're always having to kind of be on high alert to capture moments which could slip away in a second. So you always kind of have to be on it. Um, so that's what I love about the photography side of things. And it wasn't just an overnight change to, right, okay, well, now I'm going to do photography. I was dabbling in the photography whilst I was doing the coaching as well. It was just as and when I could. And then when I decided enough is enough with the coaching and stopped it, that was right. Okay, well, now we're going to push the photography more and go down that route.
Yeah. Nice. I asked you earlier about during your fitness business about success, and I mentioned how success is one of those difficult things to define, really, because it's so unique, it's so dependent on the person. The Lois that's sitting here right now having this conversation, what does success look like for her?
I think success for me is in the quieter, private moments, the things that you're not screaming about on Instagram. on social media for people to see. And the things that you know in your heart and you know in your soul are lighting you up and driving you towards your purpose. And since stepping away from my coaching, since stepping away from the Instagram, it feels like a weight is off my shoulders and I feel like I'm able to breathe. I feel like I'm no longer overthinking. I don't feel anxious anymore about business, and it just feels like quite a relief. So that's how I knew that's how I knew that obviously that is just not what I wanted to do anymore, and it just didn't light me up in my purpose. So I think um success for me is in the quiet moments, the things that only you know or that you feel. Um yeah.
I love that. That resonates a lot with me, and I think it will resonate a lot with people listening. The last question I've got for you, and what I want to wrap up with, is whether you have, or maybe the better question is, what words of advice would you have for someone who may find themselves in a similar situation to what you found yourself in terms of being in a job or career that they're no longer finding lights them up, and they're looking to find their passion? What advice would you give to someone who's maybe thinking about making a change but is scared to?
It's never too late to change. It's never too late to try something new. And I think it's important to stick with things and to try your hardest as much as you can. Don't get me wrong. But if something really, really, really isn't working for you, then you are allowed to walk away from that. You're in control of your own life. I had a business that for 8 years I felt was my, it was my baby. I was really proud of it. And I didn't want to let go of it because so much time, so much energy had been put into it. And it's kind of like, when you're in a relationship that shouldn't be you shouldn't be in anymore, but you're holding on to it because so much time is invested and you've put so much energy into it, and you just keep going because you're like, well, we've been together for however many years, might as well keep going. But deep down in your heart that it's not working. If you've got that feeling, if you've got that gut feeling, it's most likely because something is not right. And you don't have to put pressure on yourself to keep going with something just because you think you're worried about what other people are going to think, or other people's expectations of you. At the end of the day, this is your life. This is your, whatever you want to do in life, you need to grab it and go for it, because you're only going to be on this earth once. So what's the point doing something that you don't love? You deserve to do something that lights you up and lights up your soul and gives you that light back.
So in other words, job your love.
Job your love. Job your love.
Lois, thank you so much for joining me today. That was a fantastic conversation, and I really enjoyed listening to your story, and I think it's really refreshing as well, and I'm so glad that you've found your passion again for what it is that you want to do and the exciting things that you've got coming up. If anyone is interested in the photography side of things for you, where should I send them to?
So my Instagram handle is at Moments by Lois, or you can check out my website, which is www.momentsbylois.com, and Lois is spelled Lois. Honestly, Matty, thank you so much for having me. It was just great to sit down and have a conversation, and quite strange to be on this side. Normally I'm asking people the questions. So thank you for your time, and it's been a pleasure.
No, thank you. Thanks very much.
Free audio post-production. by alphonic.com.